Thank you guys for joining me here on this last segment here on the Chip Shot Football Podcast to discuss. Of course, we had to bring it on here. The Commanders win over the Chicago Bears. Jaden Daniels in this game was able to be active for this game after suffering that rib injury last week against the Carolina Panthers, and there was some questions about whether or not he was going to be able to go, but he was active for this game in a matchup between the number 1 and number 2 overall pick in this year's draft. Obviously, Caleb Williams at number 1 and Jaden Daniels himself at number 2. Washington overall just won on a miraculous Hail Mary touchdown to give them the lead 18-15 over the Chicago Bears. The Bears unfortunately dropped to 4-3 while the Commanders go to 6-2. This was the 6th matchup of rookie quarterbacks taken with the first 2 picks in the NFL draft in NFL history. Chicago was on a 3-game winning streak leading up until this game, but of course, obviously, that now ends and they go to 4-3. And Washington had 4 field goals going into the fourth quarter in this game, not really suggesting that they deserved to win this game like a lot of people would put it. But Chicago also just highlighting the lack of offense, the lack of excitement in this game, only had 172 yards of offense before the fourth quarter as well. So it was a very grimy, very just nasty game where the defenses were showing out. It was just field goal after field goal after field goal. And, the first touchdown didn't come until the third quarter. And that's where we're going to start on this recap here. Because Chicago's 5 drives in the first half included 4 punts and 1 turnover on downs, while Washington converted 3 of their 5 drives in the first half into field goals. So they led 9-0, and 4 out of the first 5 drives in the third quarter for both teams were punts before the first touchdown of the game came from DeAndre Swift on that 56-yard touchdown. That gave the lead to the Chicago Bears, and that took them that made the score 12-7, after, the Commanders had 4 field goals. The Bears cut it down a little bit to 12-7, and after a missed field goal by Washington that would have made it 15-7, obviously, Chicago orchestrated a 9-play, 84-yard drive that they botched at the goal line with such a dumb, unnecessary play to an offensive lineman, I think he was, or he was some sort of lineman that they had in as fullback. Caleb tried to hand him the ball, and it hit his chest pretty much, and he fumbled it right as he, went up to the line of scrimmage, and it was recovered by the Commanders. So for what would have been definitely the lead at this point for the Commanders, they would have put them up 14 to 12 basically, but they botched that opportunity, and it wasn't until their next drive that they did finally score after another impressive drive, 10 plays, 62 yards, and a touchdown to Roschon Johnson, plus the 2-point conversion, put the Chicago Bears up now for real, 15-12. And, then of course the Hail Mary drive comes, and Jaden Daniels was able to get close enough with those 2 completions to Zach Ertz and Terry McLaurin, which I'm sure if you guys have seen, people are freaking out about. But, the Hail Mary was what it was. Apart from being a great throw from Jaden Daniels, obviously, the most, you guys have probably seen, those instant karma moments anywhere on social media, right? Where somebody does something, they think they've gotten away with it, and then something happens to them immediately right after to kind of show that karma moment. Tyreek Stevenson, the most insane just chain of events that I've ever seen for that to end up happening, right? Because watching Tyreek Stevenson, the play that Terry caught that out route, he was already talking to, you would assume, the Commanders fans, right? Kind of taunting them, kind of believing he won this game before, obviously, the Hail Mary, right? He was already taunting the fans. Then on the Hail Mary drive, while everybody was running down, he continued to taunt them, kind of have his back to the play, not even really knowing what was going on, until he finally turns around and realizes, shoot, I got to run over here. He runs over to the pile where the ball is going to be thrown, and he gets there a little late. he gets his hand on the football. Actually, he jumps up above everybody, but instead of kind of knocking it down, he sort of just kind of keeps his hand up and it tips it up. And because of that, it kind of flies over everybody just perfectly for Noah Brown that's just sitting there waiting in the end zone. He catches it, obviously, and they win the game. They win the game on that Hail Mary drive. I was watching it with some of my buddies. We all went crazy for that to happen. Of course, we didn't know the whole buildup of it with Tyreek Stevenson and everything, but for a ball to be, dropped into the pile, be tipped up over everybody, and Noah Brown just sitting there catching it seems to be like the most lucky thing to ever happen, right? But looking at how everything played out and how we're just gonna break it down real quick with the last drive overall, because the first couple completions to one of them was an incomplete to Zach Ertz, right? That started this last drive for the Commanders. That one was incomplete. Then Jaden Daniels threw another completion to Zach Ertz. This time it was actually complete to Zach. And there was about 12 seconds left, I want to say, when Jaden threw that out route to Terry McLaurin. And I think at that point, there wasn't too much time left. There was around 6, maybe 7 seconds where Terry quickly goes to that out route and they get closer. I want to say 13 yards closer off of that reception. So that puts him in a good amount of range for Jaden Daniels to get close enough to the end zone, right? You might think that doesn't make a difference, right? They were going to run the Hail Mary anyway. That's wrong, because if they don't complete this pass and the Chicago Bears actually defend the boundary, because with about 6 to 7 seconds left in this game, that if the Commanders throw it into the middle of the field, they're not going to have enough time to, one, snap the ball, have the clock stop running, and throw it into the middle of the field. That's going to take probably at least like 3 seconds, maybe 4 by the time how far you go. And if you go far enough to get in range for a Hail Mary, you're not going to have enough time to get up, spike it, and get everybody set. So you knew that they weren't going to throw it into the middle of the field. So usually you defend the boundaries, right? Not even give them the option to throw that quick out route to get into Hail Mary range. The Bears didn't do that. They just sat back and gave that up willingly. So with that being the case, now the Commanders are in Hail Mary range, right? Still not the likeliest of plays to happen. All right, so the Commanders, go through the Hail Mary thing. Jaden Daniels buys himself some time. The Bears are only rushing 3. And you had TJ Edwards there that was sort of kind of like a spy on Jaden Daniels. He wasn't really doing much. He was just kind of standing there. But ultimately, they were rushing 4, maybe 3. So the offensive line gave Jaden Daniels enough time to have everybody go down there. And Jaden Daniels throws the bomb up there. And from what I've heard, from what I've, kind of learned from listening to former players, is that in these situations, right, you obviously practice it each and every week, and usually there's guys boxing certain guys out. You have assignments, you have roles to do on Hail Mary plays, right? It's not just luck. Or I guess it's luck in a way that if you do everything right and somebody just goes up above everybody and mosses everybody, then you kind of give it up to him, tip your hat, and say, all right, that was a little bit of a miraculous catch, right? But in this situation where you have Tyreek Stevenson over here not following his assignment or not really being fully locked in, and also once he returns to the play, everything is just kind of thrown out of order. You have Tyreek Stevenson just trying to go up, trying to do something with the ball. I don't know if he was trying to knock it down, but like I said, he kind of just flips it over. It ends up lifting up over everybody. Nobody's boxing out Noah Brown. No one's lined up over Noah Brown. Everyone's kind of just in front of Noah Brown and a couple of other Washington players. So if anybody else would have hit it up, there was still a chance because nobody was lined up or covering those guys behind them. There should never be players from the opposing team that's trying to complete the Hail Mary. They should never be the furthest ones into the end zone, right? They should never be the furthest ones, like I said, into the end zone. There should always be Bears players, furthest back into the end zone. There should be nobody behind those Bears players, right? And all the Bears players just kind of swarmed to the football once it was going to drop, looking at the trajectory of it. Nobody was boxing out Noah Brown. And, of course, like it all played out, the ball just ends up going to him, and they lose the game Still miraculous that it all happens like that, but there are certain mistakes, coaching errors here in this sequence of events that really you can point to the Bears for having a lapse. They should have won this game. I like the plays that I saw out of Caleb late in the game, because to start the game it really didn't look great, but the last couple drives looked pretty solid. He completed some good throws and whatnot, but it's a shame that it kind of got thrown away from not calling a timeout or stopping them from throwing it to Terry McLaurin or knowing where you were supposed to be on the Hail Mary. All those little things that nobody, again, really pays attention to, because you just think a Hail Mary, we're just going to throw it up there. And like the title suggests, it's just a prayer. But you have these protocols, these assignments, you go over it in practice so you're not on the wrong end of looking kind of dumb when this Hail Mary plays against your favor. And that's exactly how the Bears looked. And I would just chalk it up to a coaching mistake. Matt Eberflus has been questioned a little bit, especially with what he said after the game. How he said the Terry McLaurin catch didn't really matter. It did, because they wouldn't have thrown the Hail Mary anyway if he didn't catch that ball. So it just shows, I think, the Bears' still biggest problem, which to me would be the coaching, because they have the players, they have everything. I just feel like they need some direction, and whether or not that's Matt Eberflus or Luke Waldron, that's a different discussion, not for this episode. But yeah, I mean, it was a miraculous play. Washington steals the show. The legend of Jaden Daniels grows even more with this Hail Mary, so that was awesome to see. But definitely the Bears will be kicking themselves. Not looking forward to that next film session, I'm sure, when all these problems are going to be pointed out. But ultimately, the Commanders win, and I think that's a great way to end the show, on such a awesome play that we saw yesterday to wrap up Week 8. So that'll do it for today's show. Thank you guys for joining me. Please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the Chip Shot Football Podcast, as well as checking out the network and following the network on all forms of social media, and checking out more content around the Chip Shot Football Podcast on both YouTube channels, where there's a lot more variety of content and coverage around the NFL in a bunch of different ways. And also, as a final reminder, tune in every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for more NFL coverage, discussions, recaps, everything around the NFL with me, Manny Maradiaga, as your host. Thanking you for joining me, and I'll see you guys back here again tomorrow to recap Monday Night Football.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to